Today we're going to be breaking down the map of Lumiose City in Legends Z-A. And this of course comes from the official Pokemon website where they posted this really cool high quality map of Lumiose, which reveals quite a surprising amount of hidden details about this game. So I've gone through the entire trailer and pretty much pinpointed every single screenshot to this map and compared it to the original Pokemon X and Y to hopefully decipher exactly how much bigger, but more importantly, how much more detailed it is. So let's get to it. Immediately compared to the X and Y map, there's just so much more detail here. But I guess we can begin with some of these symbols and the text up top, which I gotta assume says Lumiose City. The Pokemon language has always been a little inconsistent though, but if any of you guys are fluent in it or can somehow read the motto under it, let me know in the comments below. Down at the bottom though, we have these symbols, which are thankfully a lot easier to decipher even if we can't actually read what they say. Like this one here obviously being the Pokemon Center, and right under it a symbol for shopping. However, in the trailer, we see that the Pokemon Center and Pokemart are most likely going to be combined, which means this symbol isn't actually for the Pokemart, but rather potentially for boutiques. I mean, X and Y were the first games that introduced fashion to the Pokemon world, so it'd be pretty weird if ZA didn't have different outfits. I feel like this right here pretty much confirms that there are going to be clothes shops, and we even see some of them in the trailer. This one right here, obviously cafe. There's many cafes in the original X and Y, so there's going to be a lot in ZA. This right here has the exact same shape as the Lumiose Museum, which we can literally see right here on the map as well. But these last two symbols are the ones I'm the most confused by, because at least this one definitely looks a lot like Aegislash. I mean, there's an Aegislash right here you can compare. In the trailer, I believe we also see this on the ground during the battle against our rival. Might not be the exact same symbol, but it has a very similar look to it. So maybe this signifies areas where you can battle? And this final symbol, I have no idea. Like, kind of looks like the face of a Pokemon with its eyes closed. But what Pokemon exactly? I've never seen a Pokemon that looks like that. If any of you guys have any theories what this symbol could be, or if you can maybe even potentially read what that says, let me know in the comments, because that is the only one that I'm like really confused by. Anyway, let's get started on the actual map, and I guess we should begin where the game is most likely going to begin, which is this new building right over here. Actually, a good place to start is by labeling all the buildings that I managed to match to Pokemon X and Y. And I literally went around Lumiose in X and Y, which was a very nostalgic experience. So beginning on South Boulevard, we have Sycamore's Lab. And we can use Sycamore's Lab to confirm that this big building was nowhere to be seen in the original X and Y. Though it does seem to match up with the location of the exit to Santaloon City, so maybe they just upgraded it. But from the trailer, we can assume this is where we'll first be arriving in Lumiose. We can see it in the background during the starter select, and a bit later, you can also see this building back here that has the billboard on it, also during the starter select. And you'll see that's kind of a theme throughout this whole map. They placed these Pokemon in very specific spots, possibly to cover up spoilers, though I'm not really sure what would be getting spoiled here. Anyway, if we keep going up South Boulevard, you eventually arrive at the actual Lumiose Station, which you can see is still there in the Legends Z-A map. Like, originally I thought Lumiose Station just got reworked. That's what this building was, but there's another screenshot of an actual train station, so it seems to me that we'll still be first arriving in Lumiose by train and just eventually make our way down to this area to receive our starter Pokemon. Pretty cool little detail though is that in the trailer you can see there's a pillar missing to this tower, and on the map it reflects that as well, which is interesting because that means we're actually going to be receiving our starter from behind the building, back here I guess. But there is another building near it that you might recognize from the trailer, and I believe this is actually Hotel Z. And there are plenty of screenshots that can prove this. Starting with this one here, we can see that Hotel Z is covered in vines, and we can see the same vines throughout the trailer, which this building here, if you zoom in far enough, you can see it is kind of covered in green areas. None of the other buildings are like this, by the way, so seems to match up pretty well. But another hint is that at Hotel Z seems to be where our first rival battle will take place, with the arena in which we battle being quite square, which is what I believe these little birds are hiding. You can see it's a square-shaped area, which means specifically this building right here would be Hotel Z. But there's more, because during the trailer, there's a specific scene where you can see our character up on a rooftop, and you might not have noticed, but that is actually the roof of Hotel Z. I managed to match it up exactly with the windows here at the top. You can see they are the exact same windows, same spot for the vine there. So yeah, this is definitely the rooftop of Hotel Z here. But that's not all, because this very rooftop is also where we later spot our friend Zygarde. Take a look at these sort of chimneys over here, and in the screenshot of Zygarde up on the roof, you can see the exact same chimneys. I know there's probably other chimneys like that around the region, but these actually do match up one-to-one with the one seen in the original. And the actual roof behind these little chimneys here looks a whole lot like the one that Zygarde is standing on. And again, same view of Prism Tower with the Quasartico building in the background too. So you're welcome. I already found a Zygarde cell for you before the game has even come out. Around this area is where we see a couple other shots from the trailer though, like this one of our character doing some hardcore parkour. This is probably the jankiest looking scene in the trailer, just in terms of the animation. The character just looks really weird. Right around this area, there's also a couple of cafes. This specific one was also present in the original X and Y. In fact, both of them were. You can see them right here. Cafe Introversion and then Restaurant Lena. One very interesting thing I noticed though is that the Pokemon Center present here in X and Y, right across the street from this cafe, doesn't seem to be present in Legends Z-A. Or rather, it seems to have been moved up a couple blocks. At least I believe this right here is the Pokemon Center. I'm not 100% sure if all these screenshots are the exact same Pokemon Center though. I mean, you can see this part of it right here with the hologram does seem to change from like a revive to a potion. However, I did spot a couple other Pokemon Centers around. You can see one right down here, which does match up with the original Pokemon X and Y. They look tiny, but like in this screenshot, you can see the Pokemon Centers only take up the bottom floor of these buildings. In fact, only the corner of the building, which is exactly what they look like here on the Z-A map. It's only the tiny little corner of the building. I actually noticed one more Pokemon Center in the trailer. Again, it's hard to tell if this is one that we saw previously, but it does seem to be in the red roof area. And at least the 3 Pokemon Centers that I did manage to spot all seem to be in different sectors. You can see one is here in the green or vert zone, another one is in the blue zone, and the third is in the red or magenta area. So there's likely going to be one up in Rouge and possibly a 5th one in the John area. But yeah, I'm pretty confident that's Hotel Z. So we're going to continue along past Lumiose Station where we have another mystery building. And again, I did a little bit of investigating within Pokemon X and Y to see what is located here in the original game and ended up finding a building I never even knew existed. Yo, where am I? What the hell? Is this just a random apartment? That's why my little brother Trevor has always dreamed of traveling all over. What? This is Trevor's house? I found this fan-made map of Lumiose City's points of interest, and you can actually see Trevor's home right there next to John Plaza. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but this plaza right here, the one in like the yellow sector, and Trevor's house would be right there next to it. So I wonder if maybe that is Trevor's house? Maybe since the events of X and Y, Trevor continued his research and became a famous rich professor and got a freaking mansion built. What he's studying, it's kind of hard to tell because like no matter how far I zoom into the building, you can't really tell what's going on. I mean, obviously there's like some birds at the top, but I don't think he only researches bird Pokemon or anything. I think in the anime, he was actually really into photography. So my guess is this could be his photo studio, kind of like the one we had back in Jubilife Village. So continuing up the North Boulevard, we of course have Hotel Richissime. This is another one I managed to match up exactly one-to-one in-game. You can see the building itself looks very, very similar, like the front of it has this cylindrical shape. But the kid standing up front with the Honedge is interesting to me because throughout the trailer, we actually see them quite a lot. And by them, I mean trainers that wear the exact same purplish uniform. I mean, if we really zoom in, the hair might make you think of a character like Annabelle, but I really don't think that's her or a reference to her. I do believe that that is just one of these kids or students that we see throughout the trailer. And maybe there's some kind of new academy in Lumiose. And it's possible that it could be this building right here. It kind of looks like a school campus and the color sort of matches up. I mean, this is more blue than purple, but there definitely is an academy in Lumiose, as much as I don't want another school life theme in Pokemon. I mean, at least our main character is not in school anymore. But going back to Hotel Richissime, just down the street, we have the Lumiose Museum. It's quite inconspicuous in the Legends Z-A map. Like, if I turn off all the labels and just show you the map like this, you wouldn't even guess that's an important building at all. I mean, to be fair, I don't think it is that important, but it does appear in the bottom left corner of the map here. And last but not least, we of course have Quasartico Inc., the corporation behind Lumiose's grandiose redevelopment plan, and definitely not the bad guys of this game. Either way, you might have noticed right behind them the Quasartico logo, confirming that this scene does take place within the Quasar building, and you can also see this interesting backdrop, which we actually see throughout the trailer. It's a really cool sort of triangle-shaped wall here. It could just be a coincidence, but there's been a theory going around that Vinny might be somehow related to Mega Rayquaza, whose whole thing is, of course, delta, or triangles. And while we're up here in Quasartico, you might have also noticed some strange... Well, let's just say this is the construction site, okay? Can definitely see some red rooftops in this screenshot, which matches up with this being in the red quadrant. And I didn't really mention, but I did label all the little plazas here. Obviously, those are going to be vastly upgraded here in Legends Z-A compared to the X and Y days. In Pokemon X and Y, all the plazas are pretty much just tiny little circles with an obelisk in the middle, each obelisk being a different color. And you can see in Legends Z-A, those colors are more prominent on the rooftops of each area. In fact, the names of these plazas are literally the French names of their colors. But as for magenta, I usually think of pink, and rouge means red in French, which is weird because in this Z-A map, those two colors in particular seem to be reversed. But the main plaza we see throughout the trailer is Vert Plaza, and that's because it is actually one of the wild zones. This first screenshot, you might not exactly be able to tell, but here we have another angle of it, and you can tell it is definitely the same just because of the bridge right here. And here you can even see Budew, which is also present on the actual Z-A map. You can see little Budew there, as well as Magikarp, which you can see in the first screenshot. Don't know what Tyranitar is doing there though, that's a little bit weird. But yeah, this is definitely Wild Zone number 2, aka Vert Plaza from the original X and Y. How they managed to add an entire like square mile of land, I don't know. Obviously I'm joking, that's just like a video game thing. But you can even see Vert Plaza down here. Same bridge with the Magikarps hopping out. But that's actually not the only wild zone I was able to find on the map. I mean, we could probably assume that most, if not all, of the plazas from the original X and Y are going to be wild zones. In fact, a couple of them I think I've pinpointed with some of the screenshots, but I'm getting ahead of myself now. Next, I actually want to bring up the old map of Lumiose, the one we saw in the first Pokemon Legends Z-A trailer. And even though this looks like it one-to-one matches with the new Lumiose map from Z-A, I noticed something interesting. It was a classic Game Freak switcheroo, and this is actually what Lumiose City looks like. And now you can start to see a whole lot of other locations line up better. But I think the craziest thing about this old Lumiose map is that it actually perfectly lines up with the various mini-map screenshots that we saw throughout the trailer. So let's begin with this one down here, which is actually Wild Zone 1. Now, originally I thought Wild Zone 1 was all the way over here on the left side of the city, but it turns out it might actually be closer to over here, which makes a lot more sense. I mean, it's right next to Hotel Z and the town hall sort of building that we seemingly start the game at. But you might notice that it now kind of overlaps with Sycamore's lab. In fact, I think we might even see Sycamore's lab in the trailer. It could be this building back here, which means maybe the wild zone actually ends right before Sycamore's lab. I mean, it would be kind of weird for the lab itself to be part of the wild zone. Either way, this cafe is definitely part of it, so maybe it's actually more like this? There's also a taxi cab just parked over there with no one inside. Maybe it's a Uber Eats and he's picking up an order in the cafe, but that is a horrible parking job, bro. Like, that's a ticket for sure. But this isn't the only wild zone that appears in the minimap. As we can see, Zone 6 actually perfectly lines up with this area over here. At first, I thought this zone might include John Plaza, but at least according to the minimap, Zone 6 does seem to be closer to over here. Here you can see that our character is actually facing south, meaning the building with the Flaffy is actually this one back here. And you can see the blue roof building that's in the screenshot behind it. Here's another angle of Zone 6 where you can see the same building, or at least I assume because of the angle here, that would be this building being seen like from down on the street level. But I think the most interesting thing about this zone in particular is the little yellow symbol that you can see here. And you might have noticed during the trailer, there's a part where the character enters a sort of teleporter that takes him on up to the roof. That is most definitely what this symbol represents. I mean, it's the same type of yellow, and the symbol has 2 up arrows, which means this is actually the same zone that we saw in the background of the Hippowdon versus Talonflame battle. And I'm just now realizing you can actually see it go all the way up to the roof of this building. So I guess the wild zones have multiple levels, like you can go up on the rooftop or on the ground level. If we take a better look at this area in general, you can see there's a sort of like waterway with a tunnel leading underneath this building. And a lot of fans were hoping to see some kind of sewer system, and it seems like maybe Zone 6 would be it. Assuming the other plazas are also wild zones, I do wonder about Zone 4, which is another one we see during the trailer. Taking a look at the blueprint map of Lumiose, I get the feeling that Zone 4 might actually be this one right here, which I believe would be Magenta Plaza from the original X and Y. And I'm basing this just off the fact that it kind of looks like it has like a wall around it, almost fenced in, which we do see here. I mean, low-key, it almost looks like a cemetery. Again, because the whole game is taking place within Lumiose, a lot of people are theorizing like if there's going to be underground areas, sewers, or maybe even the Lumiose catacombs, just to add a little more variety in the biomes. And the catacombs are something the real-life Paris is well known for, so would be pretty sick to see it in a Pokemon game. I mean, they gotta hide the ghost Pokemon somewhere, right? My prediction would be that this is actually Zone 4, and Magenta Plaza has been converted into a sort of Lumiose cemetery or catacombs. And there's one more numbered zone in the trailer, which is number 8. I placed zone number 8 over here because even though you can't exactly see if there's desert, I mean, it does look a little bit like sand or yellowish color there. Which zone number 8, you know, that's where the crocodiles hang out. Although the buildings behind them kind of look more like they have yellow roofs, which would be near John Plaza. Either way, that is all the numbered zones that I managed to find, and you might have noticed that number 8 is the highest it goes, which is kind of curious considering these zones have the same statues as Pokemon gyms do in previous games, and you know, almost every single Pokemon game has had 8 gyms, so maybe they're going to be 8 wild zones? I mean, personally, I would hope there's more than that, because there's already a lot of criticism about the map of this game being too small. But regardless of where they're specifically located, or even how many wild zones there are total, we do know wild Pokemon can also be encountered outside of them, as it's explicitly said on the official Pokemon site and also confirmed in the trailer, where we see quite a few battles taking place outside the green areas. Okay, here's the screenshot I was thinking of, where we can see Gyarados given the side eye with a little NK, and you can see Lumiose Tower in the background, or Prism Tower rather, which would actually place this specific screenshot right around here. During the battle with Mega Kangaskhan too, you can see them fighting a Garbodor, and utilizing the old map of Lumiose, we can actually pinpoint this up to the top right in the John or yellow area up here. Most specifically, I guess it's taking place around like this gazebo park looking thing up here. Another one of the battle scenes seems to be taking place over in this little park. You can even see a tiny glimpse of the Pyroar statue here. There's also this rooftop with a Florges fountain, which I believe I located right over here. And finally, we have Mega Charizard versus Pidgeot, which again, thanks to the old Lumiose map, we can pretty much exactly pinpoint to this rooftop. But the real interesting thing about this one is that you can actually see a Pokemon Center on the minimap. That actually confirms my theory that these are the Pokemon Centers. But finally, I want to bring up the shopping areas that we've seen at some points throughout the trailer. In fact, we also see it here in the map itself. Unlike the one that we see in the trailer, which has an almost circular dome, this one seems to be a lot more straight, which led me to believe it is actually a completely different arcade located over here. Seems there's going to be multiple shopping zones, but I also managed to find this one on the minimap, and the dome is pretty similar. But the only reason I'm hesitant is because in the original Pokemon X and Y, this is actually where the Sushi High Roller was, which if you don't know is like a super bougie restaurant you can only eat at if you're like basically rich in the game. Now, it's very possible Sushi High Roller could still be in this shopping area, like it could be one of these buildings. But there's one more building I want to point out in this area, and it's this black roof one over here, because I believe this is actually the Looker Bureau, which very briefly shows up towards the end of the trailer. I mean, it looks pretty different to all the other buildings around. Now, that only leaves one building that I'm not entirely certain about, and it's this cafe down here. It just sort of looks more important than most of the other buildings around this area, coupled with the fact there's like a little trainer eating with their furfro. In the original X and Y, this would have been either Shutterbug or Cafe Soleil, with one of those being where we first meet Champion Diantha. What the frick is Diantha doing in here? I didn't know she just gives you a Ralts, that's cool. Wait a minute, why do I have a Chikorita and a Tepig in my party? Oh my god. I'm actually surprised. I feel like this map revealed a lot more than I was expecting, so hopefully you guys learned something you didn't know about this game already. If you did, don't forget to hit that like button and share this video with your friends. Also, if there's anything you noticed that I might have missed, let me know in the comments. But I absolutely cannot wait to explore every nook and cranny of Lumiose, and I hope you guys will join me when that day eventually comes. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.